Israel, crying out and calling for help and calling on the US and the US president to come, because there had been a statement after that particular pastor said a few things about this is an intentional attack to kill Christians, and there was a statement from the DHQ that was saying otherwise, and even accusing the man of trying to put the Nigerian army in bad light and security agencies in bad light and so on and so forth. And I think that was just about 2 days away. We had 2 days apart. We had what happened on October 14 in parts of a village in Plateau State. And then that video currently has been online. It's been something that's now become a major focus. And a lot of people are talking about it. Don't forget that the lawmaker in the US on the floor of the House one time had said Nigeria should be declared a state of special interest. And lawmakers over here said they were going to put together a committee to go over to the US to stop that from happening and make them understand that the killings aren't targeted at Christians. The killings are, it's general. They kill everybody. Okay, first off, killing at all, whether you're killing everybody, some people, nobody, killing first is wrong. And then secondly, with what happened in October 14, we saw the pastor, because I think many of the victims were members of his church, and some of them were family members of people who attend other churches, and his church as well were church leaders. And just like that, and the man was crying at the top of his lungs and saying something needs to change, the government needs to do something, and if the government isn't doing something, then President Trump and the US should hear, and the UN and every other organization should hear, which brings back this conversation again. Unfortunately, we took a lot of time trying before we started the show, because we're supposed to have the CAN chairman for Rivers State on the show with us this morning, because CAN had put out a statement the first time when lawmakers were antagonizing the position of the American congressman. CAN had put out a statement urging the Nigerian government, federal government, to do something about the situation. However, we've been finding it difficult to get across to the CAN chairman in Rivers State, who was scheduled to be on the show this morning. We'll continue to try and hope that we get in touch with him before we conclude. But the major question is, what do you know about, were you even aware this happened? Like I said, many people were not. I spoke to some people in Plateau State in the government who didn't know that this had happened. I don't want to say they didn't know. I'm thinking maybe they didn't want to tell me that they know. I don't know how to describe it, but I actually had to bring it to their knowledge. Like, this is something that's everywhere. It's on international media now. Did this happen? Because I needed to get some confirmation. And it had to take me reaching some people in Plateau State and some people in Benue State to also confirm that, they heard. And even that brings us to Benue State, which perhaps might be a conversation for another time. But with how this is going, would you argue with the people that have the idea that this is deliberate and intentionally targeted towards people who have a certain religious belief? Because generally, you don't want to create a divide. You don't want people to think that, this religion is rising against this religion, or some people who practice this faith are rising up against people who practice another faith. You don't want to bring that up. But at the same time, if you critically look at the patterns, you also need to have a conversation that something of this nature is happening. However, it is not to say that everyone who is not a Christian is out there trying to. I think it's safe to say there are some people who are now termed extremists. In some cases, they are called terrorist groups that perhaps have taken this upon themselves to conduct this act. But the federal government says that is not the situation. And we need to find out what you think. For those who are unaware of the details of this, I would just bring us up to speed with what happened October 14, 15, so that we get a better idea of what this is. Now, According to the report, back in Ladi local government area of Plateau State, and this area has suffered several attacks. Specifically, the villages were Rawuru, Tatu, and Rawuru. So it's Rawuru, Tatu, and Lawuru villages. 13 people were said to have been killed. Several other people were injured. And in the deceased, they say children were also part of the casualty. And some of the locals have been saying that this was carried out by some armed militia, extremists, or bandits. They call it a certain tribe, and I don't want to put it out there because we're trying to first, especially from recognized authorities, before we say that. However, the locals have a position that they think, and they are accusing the militia group from a certain ethnic extraction to be responsible for these attacks. That's what they have said. Residents of the targeted villages have also been said to be largely Christians who and then he said what's carried out at night. So this is why this is very interesting for me, because like I said, I was shocked that it wasn't a major focus. Now, what I'm telling you is something that, upon coming across the information, I had to call people in the Plateau State government to find out. And they told me that they have not heard, and asked me to send the details of what it was. And so I went and did more research and got the data. This is what I'm saying now. The videos are everywhere. It's on CBS, it's on CNN. I think it was even on Fox. They are beginning to have conversations on it. It's on several podcasts, and everybody's having conversations about this particular one that happened on October 14. Anyways, so I got some of the details together and sent across to the Plateau State representative of the Plateau State government. Hopefully, we would get them on the show in the course of the week and get their position on the matter. Also, tried to get across to some people who are on the ground there, and they say, oh, that one is not particular now, that these sort of things happen every other time, that it's happened so much that these days they don't even talk too much about it. That was what I was told. So now it brings us to the position of CAN, which was why we had scheduled to have the CAN chairman with us on the show. However, while we'll continue to try, the big question is it possible that this is orchestrated deliberately by whoever on whichever side? Is it also something that, from the government's concern, that is being politically arranged? Maybe because we're building up to an election. That argument is being made. But if you even look at that argument, you would have worries, because these kind of killings aren't happening for the first time. It's come years on. It's been happening for several years. So the argument that perhaps it might be orchestrated for political reasons as we build up to the election and so on and so forth might not really hold too much weight. However, could it be that there are more underlying issues or reasons why this could be orchestrated is another question. That is if we want to go with that narrative. But what's very fundamental is people are dying. And that's the truth. People are dying. I was also listening to try to get in touch with a journalist who was also working on this. Masari Kim, that's his name. And the organization he worked for, and he was on an interview on Fox. He was also on an interview on CBS talking about this. And it was, which I would say got me to wonder, okay, if this is so big in all of these, how come here it's not that big? That's where it lies, which now would make anyone begin to ask some pertinent questions as to what is happening. Is this really happening? Is this really true? Or is the position of the government about this correct? Or the pastor, in fact, whose audio I might play in the course of the conversation, who was conducting the mass burial and was very vocal about the killings and says it's not the first, not the second, not the third, not the fourth. They are tired and asking that the UN, the US president, and every other international organization and countries that could help talk to the federal government and come in to help. Ultimately, what could be responsible for these killings, and why aren't our security operatives doing the most about tackling this problem? The DHQ says that they have done so much and the North is much more safer now. However, these sort of stories and these sort of realities for some people seem to be telling otherwise. We'll take a short break. In the course of that commercial, we'll try to get my guest on the line, and then we'll also be taking your calls and your thoughts about this. How do we tackle this problem? What would it take or cost the security agencies to solve this problem? That's the big question. Good morning. 0817-923-0002, 0817-923-0003, or 0817-923-0007. My name is Ifeyemi Andrew. Our conversation on the Morning Crossfire continues, and we're looking at the allegations that killings in the northern part of the country, media and the argument is, should these sort of killings be painted as religious? For some, especially some clergymen, that's the position they are taking, and their argument is the community is being attacked by Christians, the people who are Christians. In some instances, some of the victims who survivals have said that this is what they heard, or the attackers said while they were carrying out the attack. Churches have been burnt and so on and so forth. And because of these, there's that argument from that side. There are others who say, well, other people who aren't Christians also lose their lives in the process. So we can't say that it's totally